Vi presento.
I'd like to introduce our friends to you. They have just come from Venezuela a couple of days ago to spend some time with us. First of all, Sumito Estévez. He is a chef, he's a writer, entrepreneur, and he's doing a lot of things. And together with his wife, he founded a foundation for buenas y banderas, mainly dealing with food and poverty. He's a leading personality. He won one of the most important awards in his country, in Venezuela. So a big applause for him. And we have Ana Cristina. In spite of her young age, she's an architect, urban designer. She's a researcher and professor at the Urbanism Institute of the Architecture Faculty of Venezuela. She lives in Caracas, and in 2014, she founded a non-profit making organization, Trazando Espacios, which involves people in the change of urban spaces so that they can rediscover themselves as a community. A big applause for Ana. And then we have Alejandro. Alejandro, he's a very dear friend of ours. He's already been a guest at the Rimini meeting. Alejandro, this year, is celebrating 20 years of marriage. He's got 4 daughters. A big applause just for that. He has a history of former executive of important companies, with profit-making companies, and yet, in spite of this past, he decided to go back to his family because of the love he feels for his company, and he founded this organization, Trabajo y Personas, which aims at teaching people how good it is to work and help people discover that the dignity of the human being is deeply related, deeply rooted to work. And his work is mainly based on creativity and work. Today's session is entitled The Example of Civil Society, Testimonies from Venezuela. We are going to talk about how each and any one of us is an irreducible human being. And because of this nature of ours, in any condition, in any circumstance, we have in ourselves the desire to continue building and never to stop vis-a-vis the desire of always meeting the other, of always meeting the other being. Whenever this happens, this is always astonishing. And listening to the testimonies from our guests, what they're going to tell us is going to be really astonishing. So I'd like to now immediately leave the floor to Sumito. He's going to talk about important encounters that change one's life. And I think that Sumito's contribution is going to be focused on this contribution. I'm going to read out my contribution in Spanish. I apologize, I cannot speak your beautiful language. That's why I'm going to read out this contribution. Dear friends, I've been asked to bring to you an example of civilization in a country which is perceived by everybody to be on the verge of the abyss. I'm going to talk about a story of conversion, a simple story. That's the story of someone who was not grown up with rituals, someone who did not inherit these rituals, but rather inherited a human experience, helping him to live in a human way. That's the story of an adult man who found his own story in Jesus Christ, my story. Mid-2009, my wife Sylvia and I, after a long, successful professional story in Caracas, decided to move to Margarita Island. We decided it because we love the sea, and we were sure of the fact that this would have made us happy until the old age. It's much more beautiful to spend one's elder age before the sea. Actually, we were not escaping anything. You see some pictures of where we lived. That's where I live now. When we came to this island, at the time I was very famous in Venezuela. I had already been going on TV with my cooking program in TV. And I also wrote an editorial. So the island of Margarita was the possibility of doing things by myself without too much popularity. My wife and I are quite shy. And when we like spending a lot of time alone in our home, we like playing Scrabble, we like to talk a lot. We like to live kind of secluded lives. We very much appreciate our own reciprocal company. And the island was a kind of a blessing in this respect. We did not know anyone. And as that was not the capital of the country, there was not so much social life going on. So we were in the perfect place for some kind of a solitary couple who was not that accustomed to living with other people. Sylvia and I are business people. So in December 2010, built our cooking school in a beautiful plot of land that we bought on top of the mountain of the island. 1 month after the inauguration, there was a terrible flooding. So all our efforts were covered by mud. And in that morning, Sylvia and I found ourselves sitting at the door of that school, silent and powerless. And so a lot of our neighbors came to us. I did not know these people. They started helping us. They started helping us remove the mud. There were about 20 people of them. My wife had gone looking for food for them, and I didn't understand why they were helping us. They were not friends of ours. We had not lost our house. And then dawn came. Lots of mud had been removed, and I told them that they should wait because my wife was on her way to bring food. And actually, they said they could not stop because there were other people whom they had to help, and so they left. So they had come to our place and then left. So that day, my school, after the terrible flooding, had become new again. And that was a day of change. That marked a day of change for me. So on that day, I matured a different experience. I realized that I was not a lonely person, a solitary person. On the 22nd of October, some years later, I would baptize and became a Christian. And everything became from that experience, from that day on which many of my neighbors helped me remove the mud. Since then, I've had lots of meetings. I have not enough time to talk about this in detail today. Anyway, I would like simply to say that on that day, I started becoming a person who would never be deaf again towards the encounter of the other. So my wife and I started doing experiences, and we started organizing a gastronomic trade fair on the streets. We experienced something similar in Montepulciano in Italy. So our gardener came to pick us up in the airport. He told us that during our absence, he would experiment. He participated in the competition that was organized in this fair, and everything was surprising because of the techniques he used. Alberto, that's the gardener's name, started training himself, and he started working in the kitchen. So one day, my wife and I told him that we wanted to dismiss him, to fire him, because he was ready to start his own activity. And his routine work with us was about to create an obstacle for his activity. Alberto today has won a lot of competitions. He's now become famous, and that fair is now part of a movement of street festivals on the island. And we also set up a foundation for Fogones y Bandera. And today we're now running a course on gastronomic business activity, entrepreneurial activity, to help create jobs. This foundation was set up because I had the chance to meet this gardener, and I was willing to listen to him. I'd like to share with you another story. That's the story of Oscar. Oscar would live in a mountain village about 1,000 kilometers away from the island. He sent me a beautiful letter telling me that he didn't have enough resources to study. I received a lot of letters asking for resources, but actually this person was not asking for money. He simply explained that he liked cooking. So my wife Sylvia invited him, and we offered him work in our restaurant, and we gave him a scholarship. And now Oscar has become very famous, and he works in Mexico City. He was our first student with our first grant, and now we've put in place a national system of grants. And with our foundation, we gave lots of grants, lots of scholarships from sponsors that have now made themselves available in any parts from the country. Oscar is he himself a sponsor of a young person with a grant. All of this happened because of our meeting with Oscar. At the time, I already felt that belonging to a community and looking for an encounter was really the result of something more. We needed to participate, and that was just an intuition. And this leads me to the third story, the palmeros, those who collect palm tree branches. So there they are. So they do some kind of a pilgrimage on the Friday, and then on Saturday they collect these palm tree branches. One day I saw them coming down. They recognized me simply because I was famous, and soon after they invited me to cook the frijolada prepared to feed those who actually carry the statue of Christ during the procession. A couple of days later, actually, I started participating in all the processions during the Holy Week. So I participated with my community, and a week later, I went down helping them preparing this soup, and I discovered that they're not doing this only for those who work in the procession, but also for all the people who are at their home during the Holy Week. And that's a long story, but I've become a Palmero myself, and this year I was helped carrying the statue of Christ myself. So I became a Palmeros, and that's a great experience of community, which is really indescribable. And everything started because I dared preparing a soup with them. And now I'd like to talk about Don Irineo as well. My mother-in-law, Nece, died in the home. Her last months were very painful. In her face, there was some kind of a forced smile typical of those people who are about to die and do not want to worry their family. One evening, I came home, and Sylvia asked me to look for a priest. I was not a Catholic at the time, and I didn't know how to find one. So I went to a nearby church, looking for a priest. But actually, priests do not live in churches. So I called a friend of mine, asked for help, and then in the evening, Don Irineo came to our home, and I witnessed a sacrament. I didn't even know at the time that there are 7 of them. So I saw Don Irineo crying. I saw him taking Nece by the hand and thanking her for allowing him to live that moment. And I saw that Nece, that my mother-in-law, smiled again. 5 hours later, she died. And her peaceful expression in the last 5 hours of her life never changed. I didn't know this at the time, but all the people who had struck me, who had marked my life or taught me something during the last years, including my wife, had done that starting from their example. It was not books, it was not the rituals or the respect for the authority. This comes only afterwards as a consequence, but it's not an end. It's the possibility that you can witness a way of living your life in a Christian way. 1 year later, I was already feeling that the way to mitigate and calm down my ghosts could be found in Christ. So a couple of days later, I went to a procession before the Madonna of the Valley, and when I saw the statue pass, I started crying. A couple of days later, I then moved to look for Don Ireneo again, asking him to convert myself. I studied 1 year with him, and then in October 2015, when I became 50, he baptized me in the church of the Buen Viaje de Pampatar. When Ireneo cried before my mother-in-law, I might have actually considered that gesture as something ridiculous, but actually I put myself in his step and I converted myself. I didn't do that because I was sad or fearful because of the illnesses, but I converted because I had been saying Christians for years, saying Christians who actually acted as Christians. Very recently in my country, a soldier brutally killed a student during a demonstration, and the whole of Venezuela witnessed this event. So we reached a very low point after years of repression and death. The day after this killing, the mother of that young boy was interviewed, and she told journalists she would forgive the murderer of her son. And she was immediately criticized, heavily criticized in the social media. Those who wrote these things, and there was some kind of a collective, murder, were above all young people. So young people who do not believe that there can be forgiveness and justice at the same time, or that the two can go together. And the very same John Paul II said that actually young people who know that there is Christian forgiveness, it is somewhere, but they don't actually and truly believe it. Young people who go to Mass, who have rituals, but these rituals are repeated mechanically every Sunday. But these young people have to be called. We have to show them that it is starting from the encounter with other people that one can start a real culture to, in a way, create willingness following a Christian pathway, a Christian way. And now I like reading the works by Father Giussani, Julian Caron. I study also from also because in the words of these people and in our daily actions with our friends of communion and liberation, I've started finding a message. Now I'm fully engaged in the so-called social entrepreneurship, and I could bring about lots of examples and tangible witnesses that where this takes place. For example, we did useful work in our Foundation for Fogones y Banderas. My two colleagues here, Ana and Alejandro, are a living example, beautiful example, of the fact that in spite of the chaos currently present in my country, this is something that can happen. But I have a certainty. Jesus Christ taught us Christian life, a simple life, a consistent life based on consistency between what you do and your words. I'll continue studying, establishing networks, and working for social entrepreneurship and contribute to the reconstruction of a split country with my doubts, with my fears. But ever since I've been a Christian, all of this has become much easier. And at the end, I'd like to show you a picture of my working group. Thank you very much. So good morning, Anna. You can start. I would like to thank you for the opportunity that you've given us to inviting us in Rimini. I'm going to speak in Spanish because this way this is going to be much easier for me to deliver my speech. Today, I'm going to tell you a story. A story which is about meeting ourselves to help the others meeting themselves. This story stems from the fact that we need to understand what we are, who we are, and where we belong to. So understanding each other, understanding where we come from, and then feeling ourselves capable of transforming what we don't like or what can be improved in our community. This is a story which stems from fear and from how we can face fears, and it helps us understanding that we can identify opportunities in fear. This picture gives you an idea of what I think. This is a painting. It's full of many different moments that we do not understand how they can be connected, and in the end they build just one image. It's just one image, and everything makes sense in the end. I come from Venezuela. This is Venezuela is a wonderful country with lots of opportunities, but for half of my life, this country had to go through very difficult moments. I've grown up in Caracas, that's the capital of Venezuela. It's a city with 5 million inhabitants, and 50% of the population lives in informal dwellings. So in places with no opportunities, there are no basic services. There has been no town planning activities there, and these are places in very violent places, and there are no public places. 5 years ago, I had the chance to go to the United States to study at the MIT, and I did a master in urban planning. During our first year there, we had to draw a timeline, and through this timeline, our professor helped us understand how cities have grown over time during the history of the world. In 2012, our professor asked us what was going to happen and how we thought cities would evolve over the next 40 years and how we would evolve in our space and time working as professionals. We know that an increasing number of people is moving from mountain and villages areas to urban towns, living in informal dwellings, in informal settlements. At the same time, however, we live in an era of participation, and this helps us meet ourselves in many different forms that were not possible in the past. So how can we adapt to the speed of our cities? How can we include and how can we use the instruments we have to make a difference? After that year, I decided I wanted to devise a methodology to consider public spaces from the point of view of citizens, from the point of view of those who live in urban places. And I decided to go to India to start working with young people and to see how they conceived public spaces. This idea of conceiving cities and their citizens has then become the main topic of my thesis. I then came back to India with a lot of tools to work in Malgani. That's an area, that's a slum, one of the most dangerous slums in Mumbai. And that's an entirely Muslim quarter. I participated in a meeting with one of the professors of the local school who was helping me implementing the methodology I had conceived. And then at a given time, I suddenly felt fear. I was afraid. I was really afraid because I was in a context that was really different from mine. I was a woman. I was there alone. And so actually I wondered, what am I doing here? Far away from home, trying to understand cities in such a different area in the world. And so at that moment, in that moment, a young girl came into the room with a closed fist. She came close to me, didn't open her hand, and actually she had a cross in her hand. This cross was the symbol, was the sign that I needed to understand that even if it was crazy to be in India in that moment, actually that was the pathway I needed to go. That was a small sign that was particularly important for me. It marked me forever. Less than 1% of the Indian population is Christian. So this coincidence was no coincidence for me. There was a sign from above. The following months were the best months in my life for me as regards creativity. A sparkle happened for me. I started working day and night to start finishing this methodology that that I had started in India and pushed and became my thesis. After finishing the master course, I then had another fear. And I remembered that cross. And so I decided coming back to my country, which as early as 2014 was going through very difficult times. Lots of demonstrations were taking place. You know what the situation is in Venezuela politically. But I decided that that was the place where my method could have been the most helpful. And so I went to a number of communities in Venezuela. I started working with children to explain them this way of seeing their city differently, and then started transforming it. After 1 year in Venezuela, we grounded Trazando Espacios. It is our organization. It is a non-profit making organization teaching young people how one can use participation to transform public spaces. So what you see in the slide are pictures of the members of my team. My project was initially individual. It was then turned into an organization, and each and any one of us gives a contribution. We have over 1,200 volunteers working in any part of the world, and today we've worked in different states in Venezuela, 5 different states, various communities. We transformed 600,000 public spaces, and these are some of the organizations that helped us. They supported us for our work in Venezuela. Allow me to briefly explain to you what we do. Everything is based on the transformation cycle. We start from the observation of the community, then one thinks about how the public space could be changed, and then eventually it is changed. And everything starts from the word identity. The public space reflects the local identity. So each young girl or boy has some kind of a bag where they paint a letter because they have to understand that they're part of a group. So we first have this frame, this paperboard frame. We help young children understand what they do. We then take picture of what we do, and then we create one single map, because all these opportunities are part of the same space, belonging to the same community, and the community belongs to everybody. Then we show the map to the community to try and understand how we can change spaces, and then we try and envisage how the place can change. It's very, very interesting to know how we can attract young children. Basically, what we do is to produce a work of art that becomes available for the whole community. We then go and talk to the various people working in the community. We try and involve them, asking them how the place where they live could change. And then we also go outside to look for inspiration elsewhere. Young boys and girls also learn about the basics of architecture. They start measuring and then make proposals. They put forward proposals, very realistic ones. A competition is then organized, and then one decides what is to be changed and transformed. When we build, we always start from the idea that transforming public spaces is no simple work of transformation of the public space. It has to be done pixel by pixel. So even if you're building a small work, you have to do it well. We also teach young boys and girls to use the tools and the basic construction tools, as well as recycling materials. In any of our work, we foresee that 20% of the material is recycling material. So that's something that is not thrown away, but it becomes useful. Another of the things we do is to teach young boys and girls that there is no perfect plan, but there are rather very simple graphical instructions that can be used and replicated to change something also inside their homes or for future projects. This is really beautiful because we have the chance of looking at the painting and then turning it into reality, into something real. And it's beautiful to watch a children smile when he or she sees that his or her design has become true. We've involved so far a number of communities in Venezuela. But the most important and beautiful thing we've achieved so far is not that much, it's not so much the pictures. Most of the times we've created places. What's most important and most beautiful of all is the fact that there's a process behind all of this. People happen to meet. Sometimes architects design a wonderful thing, there's a wonderful work, and the work is there to be realized, to be done. But what's important is to think about the process that has led us. When we first transformed the public space in India, we gathered $15 in rupees to transform it. And the space was designed by young children. Then they painted the walls. And as an architect, that was a difficult moment because I've been trained to radically change a place. In that case, I was not changing a place radically. I was not changing it, I was revamping it. But then I realized that I was not to do things based on my point of view of a trained architect. I had to do things based on what children wanted. And it was beautiful to see how a space changed completely in 2 hours. I'd like to finish off with a question. What is your place in space, in the space and in the time where you live? For me, the answer lies in two different things. Through the work we do, I've found a space. So the possibility of creating public spaces so that people can find themselves in these places. And I've also found a space, which is the process. So during the construction, the building of this public space, people get to know each other. They meet each other. And this is a picture of a part of a quarter in Caracas. We involved about 200 volunteers here, and each of them told a part of the story, a bit of the story, on a step of this staircase. And the beautiful thing in the end was that children changed their perception of the city and of the staircase. You see here two young children. They come from two different quarters of the town, and coming to this Paris, they realized that their image of the quarter was different, but they realized that there was a community here. And then eventually, when they went up or down the stair, they would recognize that person. They told us, and the other guy actually told us that he lives in a richer quarter, but where he lives, nobody would greet him. So the difference is that in that barrio, in that quarter, people would really know each other. So thanks to this wonderful experience, community experience, I've had the chance of making an experience that really marked my soul. I realized that young people are placed in a condition to become independent and really change. There's a girl here inaugurating the space they've created. This was one of our first students, and now she's become our assistant in the labs we organize. This is yet another girl, Michelle, and I'll finish my contribution with the story of Michelle. She's a good example of how we place them in the condition of doing something beautiful. She was a student of the lab, and at the beginning, when I first met her, she told me that she was not capable of doing anything. But then, with a little bit of support of her mates and by teaching her, in the end, she produced a model for a soccer field. And she had a wonderful face, a wonderful smiling face when she saw her model. realize. And actually, I realized too that she was capable of doing something. After 1 year, we were holding another lab in her community, and she was one of the eldest girls in that community. On one evening, we were quite late, and we were worried. We were late in delivering the project, so she told me, leave me the instructions, leave me the plan, and then during the weekend I will finish the work for you. So 2 years before, this girl didn't consider herself capable of doing anything, and now, 2 years later, she felt in a position to realize a new word. So this made me understand that it is so important to learn by doing. This way you can really change what you don't like in your community. So to conclude, this is Michelle's story is my own story. That's my own story. I lived in a country with great difficulties, but then when you start doing things, gradually you realize that you ultimately can change things step by step. So this meaning, this sense of belonging to a community as a person gives you the chance to continue working to gradually change things. Thank you.
Alejandro, nel 2012.
In 2012, Alejandro told us about Trabajo y Persona. Now he is back again, and the world has radically changed. Probably you would not expect anything of what then happened. I'm really happy to have him here, and I'm really eager to listen to him. Usually, we're very much struck by his great willingness to open up to the world and to get to know new friends. And Alejandro spent his time introducing his friends to other people, and these people as well are his friends. And Trabajo y Persona is a story of loyalty and friendship. Please tell us more about it. Thank you. We could finish here because I'm already extremely happy to have Sumito and Anna here with us and with me, and listen to their stories is enough for me, and they help me look at life and the meeting in a different way. I'll try to be very, very short. I'm an engineer. I'll try to be extremely brief, and I'm used to measure time being an engineer. And I always thought that you measure time with the watches, but what Pope Francis talked about is different. Over the last few years, I've been very much helped by the fact of making encounters, meeting new friends like them. And the story of Trabajo Persona is a story of encounters. This woman is 94 years old, and Maria Cristina Picardo, she's in Venezuela now. Thanks to Father Leonardo Grasso and my wife and her, I established Trabajo Persona. Maria Cristina is my second mother. She helped me understand the meaning of prayers and what prayers give us in life, the added value, prayers and the connection of that to work. This year, I really wanted to come back with more my team to meet the nuns. There are believers, people of faith, but also people who do not believe. Nobody from CL. And these people simply look for something in their lives and want to work. these women are great. They have such a high level of sensitivity. They learned a lot, and I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot from you in the room, and from my friends, and you also are my friends. And so I started Trabajo in Persona. This is a very humble attempt to do something. I know we cannot solve everything. I know that I can't fix anything, especially in the short and medium term, but trying to educate people to make them protagonists of their lives, and in particular, trying to do something for them in a country that is going through such difficult times. And it's also about giving dignity to people through work. Well, we are working in many places, and I don't want to promote myself, but I would simply like to show you what we're doing. I've come across many similarities in Italy, like Piazza dei Mestieri, so the place of guilds. I wanted to do something similar in Caracas. So as an engineer, I set to myself that goal to create a Piazza dei Mestieri, a place of guilds in Caracas. Well, my former president, the Eternal Commander, that's how he's called, well, adopted a law that is similar to the 5 per thousand that you have in Italy. And so that could seem that seemed good, but then I just discovered that the money disappeared. So I had to start travel around and look for funds, and I found and discovered beautiful communities, Jesuits, Salesians, nuns, so many people who wanted to give their contribution, that wanted to do something, but they didn't have methodology. Then Pope Francis talked about the intelligence of faith and the intelligence of reality. So methodologically, they were lacking this intelligence of reality. So we started making connections between university, educational centers, training centers, and churches and charities to start working together. And so, and to me, all that was a gift. I travel around the country. This is the Wekiva area at the border with Colombia, and there I found some people who decided to work with me. So these are the young boys of a Salesian school that provides education and training in the farming sector. And that area, there are many problems. It's a guerrilla area. And these young boys try to work to get some pocket money, but then they always get back to school, and this is beautiful because we have Padre Pablo, Father Pablo, and Monica knows him today. He's a bishop of another diocese, always at the border. And they met Father Pablo, and they met a gaze. They were rekindled with a new hope. And so we started working. And one of the things we do is training women, because women sometimes are extremely vulnerable. And we try to train them to become hairdressers. They're called beauty entrepreneurs. And it's beautiful because we are the social partner of LOreal in Venezuela. LOreal is a big brand, and we work for them. And it was beautiful because we were able to meet the president of LOreal Venezuela, Jean-Claude, who was able to help us. And he was also very supportive, and he's somebody who worked a lot, and he had the relics of a saint. He gave me a book of this saint, and he told me after reading we will make an agreement, and I did it, and today we're big partner for L'Oreal. They're going through difficult times as well. And we still keep working. This is very satisfactory for us. And you see some pictures with me, and I wanted to put these pictures with Eva, my dear friend, because here in Cesena there is Horizonte, an association, and you see a couple of pictures of them on the bottom left-hand side, and together with Confartigianato, they launched an initiative about local hairdressers that once a year they decide to work for free. And when I came here in May, I toured all around these hairdressers in Cesena and Cesenatico, apart from Arnaldo. Arnaldo is the Italian cutting champion, and well, and also silver medal at world level. And yes, he cut my hair, so my look is because of him. It lasted just 1 week because it's not my style, but it was great. You see, Arnaldo cut my hair personally. And then with Eva and her hairdressers colleagues, a beautiful friendship started. It's a great way of making cooperation. This is not traditional. And Venezuela is not an international cooperation target because the official figures consider us as a rich country. Our per capita GDP is high, so we're excluded from international cooperation projects and schemes. But this kind of cooperation is even more successful because people can help other people on the other side of the pond with their work. And this is a completely revolutionary way of doing politics. I think this is what real politics should be about. And all this started through encounters and then evolved and developed over time, thanks also through friendship. L'Oreal this year didn't have any resources. I'm a great friend of the manager of an hotel chain called Marriott. They also have problems in economic terms, and I met him before Christmas, and he told me, Alejandro, let's do something together. And I said, oh, why not? Okay, but what? You have a hotel. What can we do together? Well, we started talking, and I asked me, which are your most vulnerable employees? And he told me those who work in the cleaning sector and finish at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I asked them, do they like, I don't know, beauty and makeup? Well, as all people and women from Venezuela, you see how Ana is beautiful. My wife and my daughter too are very pretty, and they are seeing me through the web streaming, and I have to say so, otherwise I will have problems getting home. So Mario didn't have any money, Laura didn't have any money, we didn't have any money, we were all broke, so we launched a training course for women to become beauty entrepreneurs. And so L'Oreal made promotion of their products in the hotel, so that was like a barter agreement. But then the payment process for L'Oreal is a bit short, so we had to provide for the cash flow for 1 month. And yesterday we had a makeup day for all the employees of Trabajo Persona, plus a Christmas meeting and lunch at this five-star hotel, the Marriott Hotel. You see, this is a very easy mode to cooperate. Then we have the chocolate entrepreneur. Probably many of you already know about this. We work with the Italian Chamber of Commerce in Venezuela, but also with other companies producing cocoa and chocolate in Venezuela. We involve more than 1,000 women, and there's a training course and then a follow-up work to support them. They also make internships, for instance, at the Cioccolato Franceschi, and is a dear friend of mine. You can see him here, and it's Carlos. And we are going to start a project very soon in the European Union, because we have the best cocoa in the world and the best chocolate in the world, because fuel is not very tasty, and we are tired of making, such raw material. We want to show that we can use other raw materials that can go to the benefit of the whole world. So making good Venezuelan chocolate is a very good cultural example that we want to make more well known in the world. But this is not all. With the money from cooperation, and we also started in 2014 with Maria Fernanda Di Giacomo, a dear friend of mine, that last year won a world award in the culinary sector. And well, he's the boss of the culinary sector, and Maria Fernanda, she's a top pastry maker, and we launched some sweet production works. And last year, Maria Fernanda started working with other entrepreneurs, and she established a company, and we launched these San Juan collection. It's chocolate plus nuts. Nuts do not come from Venezuela, but we have a friend who gave us for free 40 kilos of nuts. So we started creating this chocolate with nuts, and I also had a great opportunity to give some of this chocolate to Pope Francis last year. Then we also work on mechanics. And Ford had a plant in Venezuela, but it was shut down last year. And it has a total capacity of production of 50,000 cars per year. But thanks to them and their foundation, together with the university, we launched a diploma for young dropouts so that they can become mechanics. So again, this is a training course, and these young boys learn a lot also in terms of mathematics. And very often these young boys have to learn a lot because they are dropouts, so they do not have a great educational background. But I would like to tell you something more, because these encounters change your life and change my life. This woman is named Arelis. She's a teacher of the largest educational organization of Jesuits, not only Venezuela. It's an international network that covers all Latin America. She's a teacher, and she was trained because we are training the trainers. And again, we really wanted to try to reach out as much as possible. So we are training trainers, even if we do not have much resources. So she was trained, and she lives in a faraway place. And when she went back home, she started not only to train people, but also to work with communities. And when the internet works, so she uses WhatsApp or she uses text messages, and she's connected to another 13 trainers, and they are launching an innovation network on beauty. And the external beauty simply mirrors the inner beauty. She told me so, and it was really, really inspirational. This is Mafalda. This is her nickname. She's single. She has 3 children. So she's a single mother, and she lives in a very difficult district of Caracas, and she is passionate about tattoos, as you can see. She was one of our trainees, and now she has become a trainer. And she teaches coloring techniques, and so she teaches how to color hair. This is Emma. Now she's in Peru. She's testing this in the Peru market, and she won an annual award given by the Union of Chambers of Commerce, and she is a trainer in the chocolate sector. And last year she won a top French award for the best chocolate, and one of her chocolate kinds won that award. And unfortunately, recently her house got on fire, and she called me. She called me because she was desperate, and that made me think that our relations go beyond work and professional things. She's a fantastic woman. Emma started slowly, but now she has her own brand that is called Terra di Grazia, Land of Mercy, Land of Grace. This is the name of her chocolate collection. She's marketing it. This is the packaging. And she went to Bonaire and Curaçao, Aruba Islands, to provide counseling services and how to process cocoa beans and turn them into chocolate. This is Jose, and he attended the mechanic course. He already has its own company. He opened up his own workshop. He had credit from the bank. He has employees, and his employees are other boys that attended the same training course. And his neighbors at the beginning were a bit jealous, but he decided to create a mechanical cluster, and so he put everybody together to cooperate and develop new professional activities. I wanted really to end up by telling you a couple of things. This year, Franco Nembrini came to us, I have to say it, and he mentioned Dante and the beginning of the Inferno. What I like the most is the part where Dante describes how by looking up he got a relief, and he saw the light. And again, I think that this is a very beautiful image, because in Venezuela, as part of the touch situation we're going through, we got young boys and girls coming to us telling us that they wanted to leave the country because they couldn't attend university because of the protests. And I talked then to Carlos and Claudia, another dear friend, and I said myself, why don't we do anything for these boys and girls out of Caracas? And we launched a summership within these network of services that is managed by Claudia, and 15 boys and girls have come for a 1 month internship at real companies, so trying to have a taste of work in spite of the difficult situation. On the top right-hand picture, you see Baltasar Porras, a bishop, and you can see cardinal, sorry, and you see that people are really hungry. We have many, many poor communities that you don't have anything to eat, and so sometimes offering food is already something very good. You see here how people are offered some food in a very dignified way with tables and chairs. And the cardinal joined this initiative. So every season comes around because it's not faith going in one direction and needs of people going in the other direction. And then there are thousands and thousands of people who, faced with the crisis, decided to do something and launch incredible initiatives of solidarity. For instance, we have university students that try to help the people who get injured during the protests. And they really try to do something for these people and also for the injured policemen. And so great rescuing actions were carried out. And they also provide and distribute food, because otherwise people do not really have anything. They eat rubbish because they don't have anything else to eat. And we also have other beautiful examples of solidarity initiatives. Eduardo Lambruni came and launched this project to send drugs and pharmaceutical products to Venezuela. We try to help as many people as we can. Again, I would like to thank the participants. You can also join this initiative if you want through the internet. Please refer to the website. Okay, I swear this is the last promotional ad. I was able to bring a lot of this chocolate at the meeting. So, at the end of this meeting, we have this chocolate, which is fantastic. And also, there is the email and the Instagram account. I say so because the women making this chocolate would like to have a picture of you eating the chocolate and then sending it to Trabajo en Persona on Instagram, because the most beautiful thing for these women is to see the smile produced by this chocolate when you eat it, because they are so happy to see when their product contributes to other people's smile. So they love to see that the chocolate they make becomes part of somebody else's life. That's it. So I'll finish with this because Sunita and Anna already said it's great. So when a person understands her dependence on their dependence on the mystery, can't help understanding that in spite of the difficulties, there is always a chance, not only for the future, but also for the present, to live it fully together, authentically. Thank you.
Io penso.
I think that we've all been touched by this contribution, and that we will be completely changed by the contributions of our friends. I'm not going to add anything, and just one thing. we've really gone into the depths of the mystery of each human being. So there is an irreducible desire, and there's a desire of establishing a relationship. And when this desire, as Sumito said, he said, I did not convert for a number of reasons. I converted because I saw Christians acting like Christians. So when this desire meets people who live up to their expectations and their desires, and who, as Alejandro showed, are passionate about the others and looking for good, actually they change. And this change is contagious. It is infectious. So thank you very much. I would like to invite everybody to taste Alejandro's chocolate. Please leave an offer, because you know that we need that. And for the very same reason, we are all responsible for the organization of the meeting. So it is not a formal request to say that we should donate, but we are doing so because we think and feel that the meeting is our creation. So that is why I believe that it is important for you to know that the meeting is here, exactly as it is important to know that Trabajo y Personas exists. So first the chocolate, and then can you please make a video of us in this moment so that everybody actually knows what the app is to donate drugs to our Venezuelan friends. Thank you.